I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So, here's to empowerment, here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money, and here we go. And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known for the last 40 years as the Money Lady, and I specialize in just about every area of financial services, including long-term care, life insurance, pre-need, Medicaid, investments, insurance, credit management, and cash flow. And that's what happens when you've been in the business for 40 years. You've done a lot, you've seen a lot, you have a capacity to understand why people struggle in the ways that they do. And it is, for the record, it is a struggle. It is a struggle for most people. So I'm here to make it simpler as a financial professional. And I want to go into a little bit of depth about it because with everybody doing their own thing today, as a result of COVID and all the things that have come to the table where people all of a sudden find themselves all over the place. And I do mean all over the place. But one thing about financial markets, because financial markets are moved by many things, including people's behavioral patterns, world events, internet, on and on and on. But the financial picture that is available today is pretty much unchanged. What has changed has been, again, the environment, the life of the retiree, etc. And therefore, decisions cannot be made based upon your feelings or your opinion. As I've said over the years, and I've never wavered on that, I said there are three things going on out here today. And one of them is fake news, okay? Fake news is not a new phenomena. Known as propaganda, it's always been around, of recent times more so than ever. We know that it occurs heavily during wartime, during periods of instability. Case in point, what we're dealing with Ukraine right now. We do know that Vladimir Putin is putting out information that his people adamantly believe in and under their belief system, and then you flip it over to our side of the fence and we say, baloney, hogwash, that's not the truth. But as I share with people, fake news is purely interpretive and it depends upon who's spouting it out, okay? And we're watching how it plays out. So I don't put any validation in fake news unless I can verify it, okay? That's just me. I'm not interested in spewing anybody on either side of the aisle. I'm looking for validation. So the second way that people process for financial purposes is their own personal opinion. And that opinion can be filtered through your childhood experiences. If you've grown up in a home that was unstable, where people were struggling to survive, your perspective about risk and losing money and how to make money is going to be very different from people that have had very stable, controlled life experiences starting in the home. People that come from unstable environments, and it must be a bunch of them because they gamble, they take risks, they're willing to throw it all down, And if they lose, well, yeah, never had much to begin with. Again, that gets back into your opinion based upon your emotions and the filtering that took place when you were a child. Actually, psychologists say by 8 years old, you do have a framework, an opinion, a life expression that frames how you look at money, wealth, money management, and information. Again, if you haven't been exposed to these things, to have encountered them now is very, very difficult. And you're trying to maneuver through a maze and you don't know where you're going and you're not real comfortable. But again, the adage, any road will take me there, I'll get there. Well, where is there? Well, again, and I'm not trying to belabor this, but the personal opinion when it comes to financial products and information is real. The information I'm going to be giving you today is factual, is validated, and many of you will say to yourselves, what's the Powerball? I'm like, what? Why? And I have to understand, and I do understand. It took me a long time, folks. It did. It took me a long time as a practitioner to figure it out, because I came out of a world that was very different from what many average people experience. The third area, which is where I'm at, is data and information. My background and training is in banking, but it's also in science. And I majored in both arenas when I was in college many, many years ago. I love science because you use data and information. You don't come to conclusions without data and information. So scientists are always testing and unfolding and testing and unfolding to validate perceptions and data and documentation. So the same thing in the world of finance. You want data and information. And that's true to the point. I personally am not interested in anybody's pontifications unless I can validate it. So I say this for Bitcoins as well as the new emerging currency. There's good and bad, and that's for another show, but I'm not on the hype. I am looking very carefully and critically as to how this form of currency is getting ready to change the world. Because, viewers and listeners, it is. So take the time to do the research or be willing to follow me as I go down the rabbit hole, because I am looking at this. But that is not the focus of today's show. The focus of today's show is annuities and seniors and a perfect match. And why do I say that? Because over the last 30 years, I've been dealing with annuities. I've also done stocks, bonds, all that stuff. But one thing that I learned as I got older is that I detested volatility. I didn't have an issue with young people bouncing all around the car, and I still don't. It doesn't bother me. The lashes that look like, mink, the hair, the shoe. I understand all that because I am a baby boomer, and we came out of hot pants. We came out of burn your bras. We came out of a lot of stuff that was just crazy to our parents. And we got through it, and we had kids, and we realized, oh my God, I thought I was crazy. Herein is crazy. So again, I'm willing to give young people that. But having said all of that, I am now at a point in my life where I'm not interested in all the braggadocio that goes along with your hotshot stocks and even some bonds, exchange traded funds, all that stuff. I'm looking for something that I can bank on, because when you're retired, as most of you seniors know or will be knowing, you now have fixed income, or your resources are not as generous. You're not willing to run all over the world trying to find yourself. You need to have something that is wonderful and wonderfully predictive. Now, I will tell you, life has changed for retirees. Okay, and let's just take a brief history and look at what has changed, because this is very important when you talk about what do I need and why is she recommending that I look into and understand annuities. And what is an annuity anyway? I hear the term bantered about. Okay, well, I'm going to give you some historical perspective first, and then we'll move on into that. The first thing you need to know is that Social Security, which emerged as a vehicle to prevent people from massive starvation under FDR, and it was supposed to be 1/3, no more than 1/3 of your retirement footstool, the legs that you stand on. One of them was Social Security, which means that you'd have to come up with the remaining 2/3. If Social Security is 1/3, then 2/3, either through an employer-sponsored pension plan, personal savings, or both. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing were defined benefit plans, which were very popular during that time and are not so popular today because employers don't want to incur the administrative headaches and IRS reviews and all of that. Then you had your emerging defined contribution plans. These are most familiar with people today. Going back to defined benefit plans, the big boys like General Motors and Ford and Caterpillar, all of them, a defined benefit meant that you knew every month what you were going to get. Okay, it was calculated. You knew when you retired what your pension was going to be. Now, today, that's not the case. Most of these companies have collapsed the pension plan in favor of the defined contribution plan, where you put in money, your employer puts in money. It's commonly known as your 401k, profit sharing, money purchase, ESOP, and simple. All of these are terms to talk about you putting your money in an account that's managed by a trustee whose responsibility is to oversight those dollars. Those dollars are contributed on a pre-tax basis. They are to become the second leg of your retirement plan. The companies bailed out. Congress said, well, let people manage it. Big mistake. How are you going to manage a pension plan unless you are a trained professional? How are you going to know ups and downs in the market, how to anticipate moves? Can you make moves in your 401k? Do you know what the trustee is? Have you got a copy of the contract? So many people I talk to don't know any of this. And that's frightening. That's frightening because Congress just said, we don't want to deal with it. Let them deal with it. And the truth of the matter is, because you dump the baby in the water, the baby is drowning because the baby doesn't know. And again, we live in a system and a society where financial professionals are a small part of a big population, and yet we wield such power in terms of moving and maneuvering your money, which is your retirement money. That's the goal, building up and accumulating on a tax-deferred basis. You don't pay taxes on any of that money while it's accumulating. So you will see rapid improvements in the growth of that account. You can also experience great losses. I've seen enough of them where things did not go the way you expected, and you lost money. And you don't know why, because you don't understand how the accounts are set up. Pathetic. and so wrong, as the kids say, wrong, wrong, wrong. But that's what we have. So we have Social Security that was defined to be 1/3 of your leg. The second third was your defined contribution plans, where you contributed into a retirement account, and the purpose of which was to provide you with money at the time you retired. And they've exploded. They've exploded. Everybody knows what they're about, and they're going to continue to grow. But here is the risk, as I say again: know what you bought into, okay? Because tax qualified is beautiful if you're not losing money, okay? And of course, advisors will tell you, well, you got to take the long run. And I tell folks, really, where you got to have a short run vision to get long run outcomes. So you've got to take the time to learn how this works and to manage accordingly. And you have to know what your contract is. I'm just trying to tell you that things have changed from the good old days, where retirees could expect a pension. Not going to happen. Where they could expect Social Security to be a significant part of their portfolio. Not like today, where Social Security is actually the largest part of a retiree's portfolio. To have to depend upon earnings that you made in your working years and taxes, the tax which is on your pay stub, it's right there under Social Security along with Medicare. It's a terrible place to be. The world is different. It is different. Now let me layer over the financial, the curse of longevity. Yeah, we're living a lot longer. And because we are living a lot longer, it does not mean that all is well in Dodge. It means that you're living longer. Thanks to advances in technology, people are able to replace parts, get medications that will prolong their conditions, and the longevity actually is now over 80 years. That's a long time to be on earth and to have medical issues and to have financial issues. Because the thing about financial issues is the biggest fear among seniors, according to the data, is they're terrified of outliving their resources. Okay? Well, you can't outlive Social Security. However, with inflation and rising prices and everything, you may find that your Social Security check is not sufficient to cover your living expenses. Okay, and I didn't even get into medical expenses, because Medicaid, God bless LBJ for even birthing this, to help people from experiencing the horrific outcomes of sickness. Sickness can blow you up, bankruptcy, etc. However, Medicare was never designed to be everything for everybody. So depending upon your condition, you may have to deal with out-of-pocket, particularly for your drugs, okay? These are things that people did not anticipate in living longer. They figure, oh, I'll live to 80, 85. And I'm like, do you want to live to 85 without enough money because you've outlived your resources because of your investments, because of how you spent your money, because nobody taught you or told you what to do? But these are the things that we're dealing with today. The economic cost of people living longer today is absolutely, oh my gosh, it's catastrophic. You're going to need a larger nest egg, much larger. And is it too late? For many, it is. We know statistically that the average retiree in today's dollars, pre-pandemic, pre-inflation, was $25,000. That's it. That's all they have. That's what the data says, that the majority of seniors are trying to make it on Social Security and $25,000 in some type of a nest egg. Frankly, that's not a good story. So that's why I'm giving all you this information. If you're feeling stressed and pressed because of your money, let me assure you, you're not alone. It's very hard to live on a fixed income when you've not made adequate preparations. And what are the adequate preparations? Who knew? All right? Who knew? Now, that doesn't explain, it doesn't answer, well, what am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to talk to you about this for those of you that are not over the cliff. It'll be very, very good information that I'm going to share. And the final thing is a number of people over 65 today that have disability issues. Right. Getting older and not healthy is a major problem today because the reality of diabetes, chronic heart conditions, cancer, high blood pressure, and a multitude of other diseases that are causing chronic issues, meaning no answer, no solution, take drugs forever, has put a real press on our medical system. It's put a press on families because of the challenge of trying to take care of people that have those conditions. It's not like you have a pot of money to pay for their care. And that's what we're grappling with today. Seniors are adamant they don't want to go into a nursing home. They don't want to lose their independence. They don't want to see all the money they've carefully accumulated go out the window because they are no longer able to make the bills at the facility or even able to take care of themselves at home. Who's picking up the tab on this? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it's family members and it's the federal and state government through Medicaid, which is health care, long-term health care for the poor, okay? Because under Medicaid, you cannot have more than $2,000. That's the end of it. They will take everything you have. And that has real consequences, particularly when people are saying, right now as we speak, Michelle, this is not going to happen to me. And I say, bless God if it doesn't. But the statistics say it is. So what are you going to do? How are you going to adjust? Giving you the background data and understanding that right now seniors are a fast growing part of the U.S. population and the global population. The world is aging. For real, the world is aging. All you have to do is look at a lot of the advertisements. It used to be a time that television would not show a female with wrinkles and saggy necks, and they wouldn't do it because it made everybody uncomfortable. Well, today, you're going to see women with all kinds of wrinkling and skin deterioration because it is the senior population that is the fastest growing population out here. They are. And the demographics are significant. They tell the story. Now, in all sincerity, it was Ken Dickwald, or Dykewald, who wrote Age Wave, and I went to hear him speak in the early 1980s. Yeah, telling my age. But that book is a classic book because he predicted accurately the things that were going to change as our society aged. He talked about certain industries just going through the roof because people, as they age, need different types of services. When their kids are grown and gone, you hope, things are a little bit different. The data, though, is that not only are we aging, but the income that we have is not good. So the money you're trying to live on as a senior, and many of you need to keep your jobs. And I know what you're saying, but I wanted to have the good life. That's a baby boomer conversation. And it's not based upon reality and truth. Many of us are going to have to keep working. Why? Because we need the income, yes, in addition to Social Security. We need it. Our 401ks don't have enough to make it a go. And so there we are. I'm giving you background. Now, when Ken Dickwald wrote Age Wave, he talked about the future of an aging population, and that this population was going to continue to grow significantly. It was going to surge between the years 210 and 230 when the baby boomer generation, that's the post-World War II people of which I'm a part of, men came home from war and they wanted houses, they wanted jobs, and they made babies. Yes, they did. It was a boom. That's why they call it the baby boom. This period from 2010 to 2030, which is going to be staggering, the number of people that are leaving. Now, I say this because if you miss all this, it'll seem like, what the heck is she talking about? I need you to perk up your ears because the data is here. The data is verified. Remember, I like data and information. There will be, and there is emerging, more Americans over 65 than teenagers. Now, that's major because teenagers and young adults in their prime working years have to finance, through taxes, Social Security and Medicare. And if our numbers are greater than their numbers, and it doth appear there, I don't care what your politician is saying. The numbers don't support the stability of the Social Security system and also the Medicare system, because everybody is sick, because aging brings its own issues, which I've already talked about in the past. Now, what are some of the trends? One of them is that your 401ks, your Roth IRAs, all of those things are going to increase, and more employers are going to be providing them because you need it. Now, for those of you that are self-employed, you have your SEPs, Simplified Employee Pension Plans. You have other vehicles if you're self-employed. But here is the real bottom line. Predictability, risk aversion, which is a part of the previous generation, and your pension plan, which is a fancy word for an immediate annuity, because a pension pays out every month like clockwork. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to get involved with the market. You get a check, and you need the check. Social Security operates the same way. You paid into the system. You're now able to get money out of the system. So that functions, again, in a way that's called an annuity. I'm going to bring this up because you're already doing it. You're doing it through the government. You're not doing it for yourself. I'm going to talk to you about how to do it for yourself and why it is a benefit. Now, as you move into retirement, in my opinion, the need for safety is paramount. You need to be in a situation where you do not have to wake up at night worrying about what the stock market is doing. And if you're in that situation right now, and you're depending upon your trader brokers to save you, that's not going to happen. I've had conversations with many people who point blank worship their stockbrokers like they are gods. And I'm like, what in the world are you thinking? They're humans. They work on information. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not good. But you pay for every loss they make. They don't send you a check for, oh, we didn't mean to. It's the market. That's the favorite. Well, it's the market. No, buddy, it's you. It's you. You doing it. So, what does a senior need to do? They need to look at, again, diversification, which is not putting all your eggs in one basket, utilizing financial planning strategies in terms of your budget, in terms of having enough in your base account, your savings account, living well below your means, for real, well below your means, learning how to get a second business that will give you some tax benefits. You need to be concerned about your credit rating because, truthfully, that is a major driver of everything today, and you would want over 750 is where you want to be. That's where good credit begins. 850 is excellent credit. But you want to be sensitive about your credit rating. And finally, you want to be real clear about accumulation and distribution phases. One of the things I give stockbrokers and money managers, of which I was at one point in my life, much credit for is they're good at helping you accumulate. They're good at doing that. But when you're retired, you got to live. You need to move into another phase of which they're not so well trained on, which is, as I call, deaccumulation. And I've been talking about deaccumulation for about 20 years, which is, do not talk to me about great rates of return when you haven't worked out how you want your money. Don't talk to me about that, because along with significant risk is the potential for loss. So how do you balance that so that you can have the benefits without all the headaches? And so what if it's vanilla? And brokers, if you're listening to me, understand this. I just read a report, I don't know if it was in the Wall Street or whomever, but they say your clients want annuities, and they are sizzling because that's not what you're offering them. You're offering them portfolio diversification, but you are not offering them guarantees. You're not, and they need guarantees. I need guarantees. I'm not willing to play in this market, particularly given Ukraine, given food famine, given climate change, given my health considerations, given rents and everything else, taxes that are going through the roof. I, Michelle Graves, the money lady, I need stability wrapped up in diversification. I need not worry about where my money is coming from and when I'm going to get it. And I know your argument, because I was trained that way as well, which is, well, you just don't want your money sitting there. Well, I'm going to tell you this. For 2 years, cash does not lose money. Cash sits. Govies, governments and treasuries, do not lose money. You don't make any money, but I don't lose any money. And that's the principle which is bringing me to this subject matter today, which is why I feel annuities, particularly now with the baby boomers, have never been more important than ever. And you know what? And I will say this because I'm now noting on television that many companies are starting to advertise for you to call them to purchase an annuity. And I will say to you, like anything on television, it's television. Don't be boxed in. Understand the concept, okay? Understand the concept, because it's real. And because as the market continues to deteriorate, and I believe it will, through 2024, can you recover your losses? Are they going to send you a cake? What are you going to do? Okay, so which brings me into the issue of outliving your resources. How much money do you need to live on? You can't do that without a budget, which includes money that's been set aside for your savings, for funding your long-term care. Oh yeah, you are definitely going to want to buy long-term care if you qualify. Because the thing about long-term care is they have the right to turn you down. That's not a guaranteed issue. If you've got issues of health, they may, particularly diabetes. Oh my gosh, that's a game changer. Okay? Chronic heart condition, that's a game changer. Insurance companies are not in the business of writing contracts on people they think are going to die. And they will get your reports. How do they find out? It's a little known document called MIB, Medical Information Bureau, where your doctors and everybody else, labs, they send that information into a clearinghouse. Not unlike the days of banking, where you derived your credit scores, they send all your payment history. The difference is, back in the day, you couldn't see what they were sending. That's the case with medical information right now, real time. Do you know what they're looking at? Okay? But those are considerations. If you haven't saved proper amounts, then at least have the conversation with yourself about what you plan on doing about this. And if you know full well that if you keep living, that you're going to be Medicaid, which is impoverished health care, long-term benefits, you need to begin to structure and pull together your resources to reflect that. And you better have a conversation with your family, because if they're counting on the house, or they're counting on this, or they're counting on that, that's not the way that program works, okay? I'm just sharing with you. It's a whole lot of pieces, okay? But when you look at your retirement income to live on, do you know where it's going to come from? Do you know how it can be accessed? And finally, the big issue facing seniors today is longer life expectancy and early retirement. Now, let me just clear the air so that you don't have to throw rocks at me on TV, okay? You don't retire from any place if you don't have resources to carry you through a large portion of your life, the balance of your life, maybe 40 years. Some people are coming out at 60. Some people are coming out in their 50s. Some people have been furloughed and will not be coming back based on COVID. You've got to look at all those things before you say, I'm out of here. Because for many of us, you're not going to be able to afford to go anywhere. And do not allow your emotions and lack of self-discipline. Remember that thing about opinion that I talked about? Number 2, your opinion on the situation versus the data and information. You may not be able to retire. Why? Because you may be too young to qualify for Medicare. That's 65. You want to come out at 60. Are you prepared to ride out COBRA? Oh my gosh. Ask your HR people what COBRA looks like for health care. You may not be able to come out because you have not planned properly for savings, and you have not funded your 401k properly to ensure that you will have an income stream. I'm putting all these things out because these are financial issues that face seniors right now. Everybody say, I'm retiring. I'm like, okay. After the euphoria of not having to work every day wears off, and after you're tired of Me TV and Grit and all that other stuff, deja vu, and you realize that you got more month than the money, then what are you going to do? And I would suggest to you, these are things you need to work on before you tell your employer, have a nice day. Like, zoop. No. Look at these things critically. Now, let's talk about protecting your assets. Maybe none of this applies to you, all the things I've shared. You're like, that's nice to know, but I got lots of money. Okay, I'm doing great. Wifey's fine. Kids are normal and fine. And I'm planning on having a great life away from my job. And if that's your case for real, I am so happy for you. I can't tell you how happy I am for you because you are a rarity. It doesn't happen. I know people that are enjoying Florida. I know people that have done RVs, sold their home, living the life, because in those critical working years, they were putting aside money. They were saving. They were living below their means. They weren't buying new cars. They weren't financing vacations on 26% interest credit cards. They were not concerned about that. They were taking care of kids if they had them, to make sure that the kids could grow up stable and take care of themselves. Now, that requires true training and self-discipline. But for those of you that fall in that category, let's talk about how to protect your assets. You want tax-deferred growth. That you want. The tax-qualified plans offer that. Those are the 401ks. But when you leave an employer, you're not supposed to be leaving that money with your employer. My gosh, please don't. You need to roll it over into your own personal IRA account where you can manage. The second thing about tax concerns is using taxable assets first and generating retirement income. I must say it again. Using taxable assets first and generating your income, which is things you're going to pay taxes on first. And finally, balancing your tax-qualified plans and taxable savings. Okay, the optimal situation, in my opinion, is to spend the taxable money first before you tap into your tax-qualified money. If you're on disability, you need to know, or at least prepare for, and look at your family history. DNA does not lie, but look and see if you're going to need some sort of disability continuation while you're at work. Check with HR and see what that looks like. You want to get involved with products that will increase your monthly income if you become disabled. Okay, that's important. Now, let's talk about the estate. You want to avoid probate as much as possible. And I say this as a true statement because thanks to COVID, probate is a disaster. It's so backed up with people that died without notice, who did not have wills, who did not have things in order, who own property, have more. All this has caused a juggernaut in the probate process. And it should not be if they had set themselves up properly, which is a will in place, okay? A trust if needed. Okay, if you don't have a lot, I'm not going to necessarily recommend a trust because it does avoid probate, but there are costs involved, okay? You can't get around that. Beneficiary designations. Have you, on all of your items, put down who your beneficiaries are going to be. This is so overlooked. And in my practice, I found it a real issue. People didn't put down where they want the money to go. If they have a 401k, they ask you who your beneficiaries will be, and many people just didn't do it. Well, I'll tell you what, if you haven't designated a beneficiary and you transition, that money's going to be thrown into probate. And after they finish picking and trying to find out who is related to you, the money may not be that abundant. You want to make sure you have your beneficiary designations. Real important. And then finally, recognize that with many life insurance and annuities, they are fully inclusive in determining the size of the estate. Okay? Life insurance bypasses probate, goes directly to the beneficiary, non-taxable. That's how the rich convey so much money to their kids. They buy a ton of life insurance, pay pennies on a dollar, and when they cross over, the life insurance passes to their designated beneficiaries tax-free. Can you imagine? You want to know what that looks like, tax-free? Same thing can be said of annuities. Very attractive. The other thing I'm going to say to you about people do still sue people. Just because you're older does not mean you won't get sued. And yes, it's excellent to have life insurance. Not life, homeowner's insurance that does have a component on it that allows you to have extra coverage so that you can protect yourself. But you can also be comforted in the knowledge that annuities are protected from creditor lawsuits and regulars. I share this all the time. As repulsive as it is, O.J. Simpson's attorneys had him a ton of annuities. Why? Because you cannot seize annuities on creditor action. And his poor wife, her family could not collect any of that money. He has millions of dollars. He's not broke. You should be willing to take advantage of the same thing. People do sue you, and people will sue you. That's been my experience. And if you have assets that are protected, that is nice. That's nice. And that's something annuities offer. They protect you from creditor lawsuits and other people as well. And finally, and this is important, with regard to Medicaid, hear me well. If you are considering Medicaid as an opt-out strategy, folks, let me give you some sobering information. Number one, Medicaid was and remains a tremendous resource for people that have nothing. Okay? You have to get to nothing for them to step to the table. Now, in getting to nothing, that means just that. You have to spend the money down. Now, the nice thing about annuities is, again, the income is going to be counted, but not the asset. Nice. You can get an immediate annuity to go into distribution while you are in a nursing home, but if you are in a private pay situation, they will count the income, but not the principal. So if you were to die and you've been on Medicaid, there is something, hopefully, that's left for your heirs that the government cannot touch. That's nice. So why am I putting all this to the table now? I wanted to give you a backdrop so that you would have an understanding of why I say what I say, because data and information is what moves me. Secondly, you can move beyond your preconceived thoughts. Many of you, most of you, oh, I can't afford long-term care. I'm like, really? Well, I'm going to tell you what, that little premium for you and your wife, if you qualify, is nothing in comparison to $12,000 per person per month. You and your wife both in a facility, that's $24,000. You want to know how quickly you're going to go through your money? Try FAST, F-A-S-T. That's how fast we're talking about. So, why do I like annuities? And why do I feel that they're a perfect match for seniors? What is an immediate annuity, which many of you may have been offered from your jobs when you left? They may have said, we can turn the spigot on and send you money that you've accumulated in our accounts as an immediate annuity, which means the company promises to pay a monthly income for your life. Doesn't that sound like a pension? Doesn't that sound like Social Security? That is an immediate annuity, okay? And the buyer gives up your rights to have this deposit back in a lump sum. Once the spigot turns on, it's going to distribute. Once an immediate annuity makes its first payment, it generally cannot be cashed in. So you want to think carefully about a monthly check. But millions of people get monthly checks, and they will continue to get monthly checks. Oh my goodness, my guy is signaling me that I am not going to be able to finish this particular show on annuities, which means that I'm going to have to do a part 2, because I got you all got to know this. This is so important for where we're going and what I ultimately recommend. So I am going to conclude my conversation about annuities and seniors, perfect match, part 1. And I'm going to roll into annuities and seniors, a perfect match, part 2, where I will go into the types of annuities and the one that I really like. Now, mind you, I have a lot of people on immediate annuities because they need the money right now. And that's fine. You got some gaps, you need an annuity to give you a monthly check, that's fine, particularly for widows when you got a life insurance distribution from your husband and you don't want to lose your money and you want to be guaranteed. An immediate annuity can very well fit the bill. The spigot turns on in 30 days. The life insurance goes into the contract. There's no taxable consequence. And the spigot turns on, kicking you a monthly check. Sweet? Yes, it is sweet. So, without further ado, I'm going to conclude this conversation by summarily saying a couple of key points, key takeaways. Things have changed. The three-legged stool of Social Security, your defined pension plan, and your personal savings is gone. We now have Social Security taking the bulk of the money, followed by your 401k that has been rolled over, I hope, and whatever meager savings you can scratch. That has changed. We are living longer, much longer, and the concern is outliving your resources, and you should be concerned because if not planned for properly, there is a distinct possibility that you will lose your resources trying to make ends meet, particularly now that we have inflation in this country that's killing everybody. Can't even buy a piece of meat without thinking that you've been robbed. This is hurtful. And finally, the issue of longevity, which is people are living a lot longer, and I'm not saying living healthy, I'm just saying living longer. So we've got the background, we've got moving forward, where do we go, how do we work it, and why I am in love. I am in love with annuities. I didn't say all of them. They're not all created equal, but one thing they can give you is a guarantee. They give you, you can't show me anything in the stock market that will give you a guarantee. When they tell you what you're going to get, that's what you can put in your budget. And is that powerful? I think so. So stay tuned for part 2 of Annuities and Seniors, a perfect match. I'll talk to you soon. This is Michelle Graves. the Money Lady for over 40 years, wishing you a great and wonderful and prosperous day in these challenging times. Thank you so much for being a part of my world, and I thank you and bless you for allowing me to be a part of yours. Bye-bye.